Welcome to Our channel. 8 Philosophers of Stoicism you should know. Stoicism advocates living a virtuous life to achieve happiness. Famous Stoics include Zeno of Citium and Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Stoicism was a practical philosophy that deals with ethics, politics, and social matters. The first of the Stoics began teaching in Athens in the 3rd century BCE, spearheaded by Zeno of Citium. One of the principal Greek philosophies of the Hellenistic period, Stoicism sought to teach humans how to reach eudaimonia, or happiness. For the Stoics, this could only be reached by following a virtuous life lived in accordance with nature. After a delegation of Greek philosophers visited Rome, Stoicism was widely adopted by the Romans for centuries. Influenced by the teachings of Zeno and his students, some of Rome's greatest philosophers, such as Seneca, Epictetus, and Emperor Marcus Aurelius, all called themselves Stoics. More famous of these philosophies. Beginning with Zeno of Citium in around 300 BCE, the Stoics covered a range of philosophical spheres: ethics, logic, and metaphysics. Stoicism's theory of metaphysics helps to explain its core tenets. The Stoics believed that God and the universe were one entity called the divine logos that worked through a kind of divine fire called pneuma. Everything in the universe came from the logos. Planets, stars, humans, and animals were regarded as passive animal. As the universe was preordained by the divine logos, the Stoics reasoned that we shouldn't worry about things that we can't control. Reacting negatively to an event outside of our control through anger or fear is irrational. Stoicism therefore teaches that as a rational being, man should control his emotions to avoid making irrational choices and endangering his virtue. Virtue is the driving force of Stoicism, consisting of 4 cardinal ideals: courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom. Stoics believed that evil was not inherent to human beings, but simply came from ignorance of the divine logos and our essential nature. Stoic philosophers didn't advocate expunging emotion altogether, but by striving for inner peace, they believed we could avoid evil, ignorance, and unhappiness, allowing us to lead a virtuous life. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism. Stoicism began in Athens when Zeno of Citium established his own philosophical school in around 300 BCE. Before opening his academy, Zeno was a wealthy Phoenician merchant. However, after surviving a shipwreck during a trading voyage, Zeno journeyed to Athens, seeking the best way to live. While standing in a bookshop perusing some philosophical texts about Socrates, Zeno asked the shopkeeper where he could find someone similar. The shopkeeper pointed at a strange, hermit-like figure walking past: Crates the cynic. As a cynic, Crates rejected material comfort and instead lived an ascetic life without shame for his unkempt appearance. Despite studying under Crates, Zeno couldn't shake his self-consciousness about the cynic lifestyle, so Crates devised a lesson. He ordered Zeno to carry a pot of lentil stew around town. Embarrassed, Zeno attempted to conceal the pot, so Crates swung his cane and shattered the urn. Covered in stew, Zeno ran in shame while Crates crowed, "Why run away, my little Phoenician? Nothing terrible has befallen you." Zeno wanted to create a philosophy that combined cynic teachings with a more modest and civilized way of living that would bring happiness to its practitioners. After studying under various other philosophers, Zeno began teaching his own ideas from under the Stoa Poikile, a painted colonnade in Athens. Gradually, his students began to grow, and the school of Stoicism was born. In those early days, Zeno established many of Stoicism's core ideas, such as the belief that God and the universe were the same entity. He also set Stoicism's course as a philosophy designed to find the good life, lived in accordance with nature and virtue. But it was Zeno's students who transformed Stoicism into one of the ancient world's most enduring philosophies. Cleanthes, Zeno's studious successor. Chrysippus was an important Stoic philosopher among the ancient Greek philosophers. He lived in the late 3rd and early 2nd centuries BCE. Chrysippus played a significant role in the development and spread of Stoicism. Born in Athens, Chrysippus spent much of his life there. As one of the leading figures of Stoicism, he made significant contributions in various fields such as logic, ethics, and physics. Particularly in logic, he developed Aristotelian logic further and formulated many important principles of logic. Additionally, he worked on virtue ethics, human nature, and the concept of happiness. Most of Chrysippus's works have not survived to the present day. However, his thoughts and contributions hold a significant place in the development of Stoicism and in the history of ancient philosophy. When Zeno passed away in 262 BCE, Cleanthes succeeded him as the leader of the Stoic school. A former boxer who took pleasure in working with his hands, Cleanthes had come to Athens to learn philosophy. After attending lectures from both Crates and Zeno, Cleanthes gravitated towards Stoicism. Cleanthes set about developing Stoicism further, unifying his ideas on ethics, logic, and metaphysics into a single philosophy. He acknowledged the existence of the soul, incorporating the concept into Stoic ideas about how life worked. Building on Zeno's idea of the divine logos, Cleanthes suggested that the sun was made from the divine fire, or pneuma, that made up the universe. He reasoned that because the sun gave life to things on earth, it must be an extension of the divine logos. Cleanthes' stance on ethics was different from Zeno's. He believed that pleasure conflicted with nature, and that emotions were weaknesses that lacked the strength of the souls created by the divine logos. Instead of striving for a life of happiness, Cleanthes advocated a life of consistency. For Cleanthes, the only consistent quality was reason and logic. This meant accepting the universe, and was one of Cleanthes' foremost pupils, succeeding as head of the Stoic school when his mentor died in 230 BCE. The Stoic idea of fate made huge strides under Chrysippus, who believed that fate determined everything in the universe. Chrysippus used his own revolutionary system of logical propositions to illustrate that because things can only be true or false, nothing can happen without a specific cause. Rival philosophers stated that a deterministic universe negates the idea of free will, but Chrysippus disagreed, explaining that there were simple fates and complex fates. Human actions could influence the course of supposedly unavoidable events and affect the consequences. We may experience something like illness due to preordained fate, but our reactions to the event are completely our own, giving us agency. These reactions form part of our inherent nature bestowed by the divine logos. Under Chrysippus, Stoic ethics shifted away from the impersonal, rational goals of Cleanthes into something more individual. For Chrysippus, the goal of life became living in accordance with our inherent rational observations of nature. However, like Cleanthes, into the dominant philosophy of the later Roman Empire, Chrysippus died in 206 BCE. Many accounts claim that after drinking too much wine that hadn't been watered down, Chrysippus laughed himself to death. Diogenes of Babylon, connecting the Stoicism of Greece and Rome. Diogenes of Babylon was an important figure in the Stoic tradition of ancient Greek philosophy. He lived in the mid-2nd century BCE and was influential in the spread and development of Stoicism. Born in Athens, Diogenes of Babylon became one of the students of Zeno of Citium. He taught at the philosophical school of Stoicism and mentored many students. Diogenes advocated and developed the main principles of Stoic philosophy, including conformity to the laws of nature, living virtuously, and maintaining emotional equilibrium. While many of Diogenes of Babylon's works have not survived to the present day, his impact on the development of Stoicism and the transmission of his thoughts through his students ensured the continuity of the Stoic tradition. From around 200 BCE, the Roman Republic began challenging the Greek nations for dominance in the Mediterranean, subjugating the region in 146 BCE. Before and after, Greek ideas had influenced the Romans, who built upon the foundations of the Hellenistic world. One of the Greek concepts that the Romans took to was philosophy, and three contenders attempted to gain traction in Rome. In around 155 BCE, the Greeks dispatched three competing philosophers to Rome to protest against a heavy fine imposed by the Romans. These philosophers were Carneades the skeptic, Critolus the peripatetic, and Diogenes of Babylon, who represented the Stoics. Each philosopher made a speech hoping to convince the Roman Senate to overturn the fine. Carneades made two speeches, one praising the Roman justice system and one refuting it. This disturbed the Romans, and he was dismissed. Critolus argued that pleasure was a vice, which didn't sit well with the assembly. But Diogenes' speech was praised for its calm and modest delivery, and the Romans began to take an interest in Stoicism. The fine was dropped, and Diogenes returned to Athens. He remained in his position as head of the Stoic school until he died in around 140 BCE. Although he was a prolific writer, Diogenes' greatest achievement was bringing the ideas of Stoicism to Rome. Panatius of Rhodes, the radical Stoic. Panatius of Rhodes was an important figure in the Stoic tradition of ancient Greek philosophy. He lived in the mid-2nd century BCE and played a significant role in the effective spread and development of Stoicism. Panatius was born in the island of Rhodes and operated in Rome. He played a significant role in Stoic philosophy, particularly during the Middle Stoic period. He introduced Greek culture to Rome and contributed to the popularity of Stoicism in the Latin world. While many of Panatius's works have not survived to the present day, his thoughts and teachings continued to have an impact on the development of Stoic philosophy and persisted in the Roman world. Additionally, he had a notable influence on important Roman philosophers such as Cicero. While Diogenes of Babylon may have introduced the concepts of Stoicism to Roman minds, it was Panatius of Rhodes who truly dispersed these ideas. Born in Rhodes in around 85 BCE, Panatius moved to Athens in his youth and began learning from Diogenes and other Stoic philosophers. After learning what he could under the Stoics, Panatius became an acquaintance of a visiting Roman statesman, Scipio Aemilianus. When Scipio returned to Rome, Panatius followed his patron and began writing several prominent Stoic texts. These writings began to circulate in Rome, influencing powerful politicians such as Cicero. Panatius was something of a radical within Stoicism, rejecting many traditional ideas and developing his own theories. He overhauled Stoic metaphysics by simplifying it. Before Panatius, most Stoics had believed that the universe's base element was pneuma, the divine fire. They claimed the universe would go through a cyclical process of destruction and rebirth called the conflagration, when everything would be wiped clean and the universe would start again from scratch. Panatius disagreed with this fatalistic idea and stopped teaching it. Panatius also clashed with another traditional Stoic idea, apatheia, or the practice of controlling emotions. He argued that some emotions and pleasures did not oppose living in accordance with man's rational nature. Given that Panatius heavily influenced the next few Roman Stoics, he is undoubtedly one of the most important thinkers of the school. Panatius was one of the Stoic school's last masters and died around 110 BCE. Seneca the Younger, Stoicism's most controversial thinker. Seneca the Younger, also known as Lucius Annaeus Seneca, was one of the most important thinkers of ancient Rome. He lived between approximately 4 BC and AD 65. He was a statesman, orator, philosopher, playwright, and a prominent representative of the Stoic philosophical school. Seneca was born into a wealthy family in Corduba, modern-day Cordoba, Spain. He completed his education in Rome and pursued a career in law. However, due to political reasons, he spent some time in exile. During this period, however, he occasionally served as an advisor to Emperor Nero, which led to some criticism. In AD 65, Seneca was accused of conspiring against Nero, and he was ordered to commit suicide. Seneca chose to comply with this request, adhering to Stoic principles, and ended his own life. With his death, Seneca's philosophical legacy and influence persisted for many years, leaving a profound impact on Western philosophy. He gradually worked his way up to become a clerk and eventually a senator. But Seneca's life was full of persecution and paradoxes. In 41 CE, Seneca was exiled to Corsica by Emperor Claudius after accusations of adultery with the sister of the former emperor, Caligula. 8 years later, Seneca was recalled to Rome by Claudius' wife Agrippina, who wanted the philosopher to become the tutor for her son, Nero. Nero, of course, became one of Rome's most notorious emperors, infamous for his cruelty. As a Stoic, Seneca was philosophically committed to living a virtuous life, but also advised a despot and accumulated a vast amount of wealth. It's difficult to reconcile Seneca's actions with some of the values of Stoicism. In 65 CE, Seneca was implicated in a plot to depose and kill Nero. Although the charges were undoubtedly false, the incensed, paranoid Nero ordered his former mentor to kill himself. Seneca obeyed, slashing his wrists and taking poison. Throughout the whole ordeal, Seneca's Stoic mindset reflected the principle of apatheia. He controlled his emotions and accepted what fate had in store. Throughout his career, Seneca wrote a series of letters to friends and family. Many of these letters, especially those collected in On the Shortness of Life, spoke of not worrying about events outside of our control. Seneca routinely comforted his family members when bad things happened to him, rather than reacting emotionally himself. While opinions on Seneca are often conflicted, no one can deny that the philosopher was a model of Stoic control in the face of extreme adversity. Epictetus, the model Stoic philosopher. Epictetus is an important figure in ancient Greek philosophy as a representative of the Stoic school. He is thought to have lived between AD 55 and 135. While little is known about Epictetus's life, his philosophical teachings and influence have left a profound mark on the Stoic tradition. Epictetus is known to have lived as a slave throughout his life. He was born as a slave in Hierapolis, near present-day Pamukkale, Turkey in Anatolia. At a young age, he was taken to Rome and sold into slavery, later becoming a student of the Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus. Epictetus particularly developed philosophical views on free will, personal freedom, and emotional equilibrium. According to him, individuals can only control their own will and attain inner peace independent of external influences. Like the Stoics, Epictetus emphasizes the importance of living in harmony with the natural order of the universe and leading a virtuous life. Epictetus's philosophical thoughts are compiled in the Discourses, recorded by his student Arrian. The Discourses contain Epictetus's deep reflections on Stoic principles and the nature of human life. Epictetus's philosophical legacy was rediscovered, especially during the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, and had a significant impact on European philosophy. His teachings have been inspiring, particularly for those seeking individual freedom and inner peace. Epictetus's Stoic philosophy continues to be considered a life philosophy for many people today. One of Stoicism's most famous practitioners, Epictetus was born in modern-day Turkey in 55 CE, a cripple and slave to a wealthy statesman. Despite this, Epictetus was allowed to study Stoic philosophy. After earning his freedom, Epictetus began teaching philosophy. However, in 93 CE, Emperor Domitian outlawed philosophy, so Epictetus left Rome to found a philosophical academy in the Greek city of Nicopolis. Epictetus adopted a simple lifestyle and shunned material goods, devoting himself to teaching Stoicism. Despite his difficult start in life, Epictetus embodied the Stoic spirit. He taught his pupils not to complain or worry about events that they could not control, arguing that nothing had been taken from them that did not belong to the universe. Epictetus sought to teach Stoicism as a practical philosophy to be used in real life, believing that humans had a destiny as rational creatures that was bequeathed by the gods. Using our rational faculties, it was our responsibility to fulfill this purpose through living with virtue and in accordance with our nature. For Epictetus, the Stoic idea that evil was not intrinsic to human beings was one of the most important concepts. Evil only came about through ignorance and irrational behavior. Epictetus believed that our drive to live virtuously should affect not just us, but also our family and countrymen. Epictetus argued that we should be willing to aid our fellow man, and he embodied this principle through his deeds. When he was an old man, Epictetus willingly adopted the abandoned child of a friend and cared for the boy as if he was his own. Epictetus was a model Stoic, and his teachings would go on to influence one of the most famous philosophers of all time, Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius is considered one of the 5 good emperors of the ancient Roman Empire and ruled as Emperor of Rome. He reigned from AD 161 to AD 180. Marcus Aurelius is also known as a philosopher. He was a significant advocate of Stoic philosophy. The historical significance of Marcus Aurelius can be determined from several aspects. Imperial era. Marcus Aurelius ruled during a period when the Roman Empire reached its widest extent and also faced internal challenges. During his reign, there were wars and conflicts in many regions of Rome. Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius is one of the most important representatives of Stoic philosophy. His work, Meditations, contains his personal philosophical thoughts and is filled with efforts to implement Stoic principles in life. This work is considered one of the most influential texts of Stoic philosophy. Philosophical empire. It is said that under Marcus Aurelius's rule, the Roman Empire was in a philosophical and intellectual atmosphere. during his time, philosophy and thought played a significant role, being discussed and influential within the empire. Legal and administrative reforms. Marcus Aurelius implemented some reforms in law and administration, striving to strengthen justice. These reforms contributed to better governance of the empire and the maintenance of internal stability. The historical significance of Marcus Aurelius is associated with both his political leadership during the imperial era and his contributions to the spread of Stoicism through his philosophical ideas. Marcus Aurelius' Meditations is one of philosophy's most famous texts. Written as a series of daily assertions, Meditations is an ensemble of Stoic maxims that Emperor Marcus Aurelius lived by during his reign. The inspiration for these journals came from Epictetus' discourses, which heavily influenced Marcus Aurelius as he studied philosophy in his formative years. Marcus Aurelius had a troubled reign, inheriting the throne in 161 CE. Aurelius faced several famines and wars with the Parthians and Germanic tribes before facing an unsuccessful coup in 75 CE. He lost his wife Faustina soon after. For several years, Aurelius appointed his son Commodus to rule alongside him before passing away in 180 CE. Throughout these trials, Aurelius reflected on events through his meditations, repeating Stoic mantras to keep himself grounded. Aurelius frequently talks about looking inwards, evaluating his judgments to find his natural place within the universe, and living in accordance with his nature. He advocated a version of apatheia, resisting the urges of emotion as an irrational response to a crisis. Instead, Aurelius tried to approach problems with rational thinking and the sense of inner calm that comes with controlling emotions. Aurelius tells himself not to worry about events that are outside of his control, attributing the path of events to the chain of fate that comes from the universe. Aurelius tried to rule according to the cardinal virtues of the Stoics: courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom. He was considered to be the last of Rome's 5 good emperors according to Niccolò Machiavelli. The Meditations has been praised as one of Stoicism's seminal works for centuries, and it still influences politicians and thinkers to this day. Thank you for listening so far. You can support by subscribing to our channel for the continuation of these videos. Stay with love.